Sports gambling is one of the biggest scams of the 21st century. And to prove my point, me and a bunch of smart people are gonna play a game. We ask ourselves, if you bet £100 on every match in the knockout stages of Euro 2024, who would make the most amount of money? And this is how it went. The first match was Italy versus Switzerland, which in my opinion was a no-brainer. Italy struggled to face Albania in the group stages, and that Swiss team is basically entirely Albanian. However, since Italy is the more historically successful side, the bookies had them as a favourite in order to entice casuals to part ways of their money to bet on the pastas. Unfortunately for them, the fake nice guys got it done and managed to beat them, which added £120 into the purse of anyone who successfully bet on the Swiss. And anyone who guessed incorrectly would lose £100 in this case. Germany versus Denmark is next, and Denmark are a notoriously tough matchup for anyone in international competitions. Not only do they have creative powerhouses in Christian Eriksen, but they were also very defensively responsible in the group stage. So it's not hard to see why some people would pick them as an underdog. But against a rebuilt Germany with home turf advantage, not many can really justify not picking Germany here, including all but one of us. And after a Havertz penalty and a Musiala goal, a small reward was bestowed to those who picked the favouring team. Speaking of bestowing a small reward, let's talk about the worst team in the entire tournament. What usually happens with England is they will face someone who's, with all due respect, not the best, right? And then the first sign of adversity, they crumble. They crumble like an apple pie. So once they go through, they'll lose to Switzerland. But surely you can go past Slovakia, right? To much of the dismay of millions of Brits watching, Slovakia scored an early goal to officially start the most boring and lifeless 90 minutes of my entire life. In the last minute, Jude Bellingham scores an overhead kick, which I guarantee you no one will ever shut up about. And then in the opening 30 minutes of extra time, Kane scores a header to officially lead 2-1. Those two moments were the only good plays of England's entire campaign so far. Now usually I'll be okay with that because a win is a win. But when you have money on the line, then that levels of stress is unbelievable, and that stress is definitely not worth the potential £16.67 on the line. But I digress. After stinking up the entire stadium, Georgia were facing Spain and were a 7-1 underdog. Spain were easily the team of the tournament, so there's absolutely no way that Georgia could possibly... Oh my lord. This is the beauty of casually picking with your friends. If you guess your pick right, you get bragging rights amongst all of those who said that you were wrong. But if you guess wrong, you can be genuinely happy for the underdog because deep down you actually want to root for the underdog, but you can't because you picked the favourite. Can't really do that when you have money on the line, and whoopee-doo, I win £8.33. Don't gamble, people. Don't gamble. Portugal versus Slovenia was a complete toss-up match, given that Portugal is perhaps the most overrated team in Europe, and Slovenia not looking too bad in the group stages. Now, poker players often teach that the game isn't about winning, but it's about making the correct decisions, and picking Slovenia here was the correct pick, as they are the betting underdogs. The thing you need to take into account, though, is that Portugal is the penalty nation of the world, and they absolutely smacked them in that regard, handing me my first loss of this tournament. Who cares? It's my only wrong pick, right? Well, let's examine that, shall we? So far, I have picked correctly on all 4 matches in the round of 16, winning a grand total of £213.57, giving me an average win of just over 50 quid. This means that if I get one wrong, on average, I am risking losing double my money for half the success. If that's not enough to deter you from gambling, imagine I steal 100 quid from you, Think about how detrimental that could be to your bank account. Now imagine the disarray for when I steal £200 from you. Well, that is the position you're putting yourself when you rely on 11 strangers to win a football match for you. Anyways, let's continue my analysis. The next match, we were all in unanimous agreement that the French would absolutely slap the Belgians, as even though the inventors of French fries are ranked number 3 in the entire world, your guess is as good as mine as to why that is the case. All they've done is beat the worst team in the world in 2018 to claim a bronze medal at the World Cup. In fairness, their downfall came from an own goal in the last 10 minutes. This Euros has been an absolute sham. Romania topped a group where everyone scored 4 points. Is this the peak of European football? Their match against Netherlands, I was going to skip it because how are you supposed to pick these matches? I eventually picked Netherlands because they have one thing that no other team has: scoring potential. The Dutch, despite finishing third in their group, managed to score 4 goals against pretty tough level competition. So I believed in them that they could take Romania. That, and I also threatened to call them Holland if they lost, which they didn't. Yay. And finally, the lock of the round of 16. Austria, Turkey. Austria has topped their group with a whopping 6 points and are against their stylistic wet dream known as the dark horse, Turkey. Surely Austria, the team that topped their group and beat them 6-1 a few months prior to the competition, could very easily do it again. Well, apparently, Turkey made the right adjustments since that match and managed to outclass Australia for 90 fucking minutes. This is why you don't bet on sports. They just don't make any sense. Yeah, that's probably the fun of it, but a lot of that fun is removed when you have money at stake. Now that the round of 16 is officially over, the amount of money we made was pretty pitiful, given that only 2 of 7 of us actually profited during the round of 16. This means that hypothetically, 71% of people will be indebted to the bookies because, ooh, I like those odds, and believe me, the participants of this game are not dumb. We actually picked more correctly than incorrectly. But this is the fact of the matter. They will always win more than you will. In fact, some bookies, what they'll do is they will entice you to gamble by offering extremely favorable odds to you. So like 50-1 odds that someone in the quarterfinals will score a goal. And a free £10 bet so you don't even need to waste any of your own money. They're not doing this out of the goodness of their own heart. No, it's to get you into the habit of gambling. And you're more likely to do something again if it's a favorable outcome, which is winning more money. Even though this probably won't work on a lot of people, it does work on a lot of people by a significant amount, right? So those insane odds are absolutely nothing to these big bookies because they know that they're going to make more money out of them in the distant future. Before we begin, it is worth noting that one player pulled out and cut their losses of £306.43p, which means they are officially out of the experiment. Was that a good play? Well, we'll find out. We start with Germany versus Spain, which was a complete toss-up match. Half of us going on each side. I guess I picked Spain because I value consistency and defensive responsibility over home turf advantage. But even then, how are you supposed to accurately predict these things? It's not just about who's the better team on the day, but it's who did the referee favour and what counts as a handball anymore. We'll talk about ref decisions soon enough, don't worry. France versus Portugal is a battle of not who's better, but who is worse on the day. And I thought that France would be ever so slightly less worse on the day. As did half of us, which we were right about for all the wrong reasons. On what universe do the Franks beat the Portuguese on penalties? Do you see what I mean, people? Like, this sport is just impossible to predict. Speaking of being hard to predict, We thought unanimously that the consistent underdogs of Switzerland would beat those lucky bastards known as England. And Switzerland were the better sides. They were more attacking, they were defensively responsible. The only thing that happened was one defensive error to cause the equaliser 1-1. All in all, a very boring 120 minutes. But here is where my hard to predict conspiracy comes from. Who would have thought that Switzerland, with all their political affairs, would have never taken a penalty? How ironic. And we all lost 100 quid. And finally, Netherlands beat Turkey because otherwise Dutch sounds like German, and I know they heard that and thought, no way am I losing. Now that the round of 8 is complete, I want to emphasize the risk-reward ratio for when you bet on your favorite teams. Because, once again, only 2 of us made money, but not a lot, like in the double digits. Whereas everyone who lost money lost a substantial amount, over 100 quid. So, even if you do win, the bookies are always going to make more than what they give out. That's just the nature of how these things work. And if that's still not enough to convince you, we got a semi-final and final to predict, so let's go. First things first, France versus Spain. I picked Spain. Spain won. France suck, of course. Netherlands versus England. Now, Netherlands objectively is the correct pick, and that's what we all unanimously agreed. Except for me. Because you need to take into account that England, no matter how bad they are collectively at football, they have this ability to somehow, in some way, finesse matches, right? And yet it was a penalty. The last time England had a rigged referee was 1966. And ignoring all conspiracy theories, who would have thought that England, on their toughest matchup, in the latest stage they've been in this tournament, when it matters most, would have their best performance? This game is so dumb. And finally, Spain versus England, the matchup to end all matchups. I went with England because although Spain is better, stronger, and more patriotic, England somehow finesse it out of the bag. So I believed that this was it. The one time we actually won a major trophy was the one time we don't sing that stupid song. You know which one. What happened during the match? Well, first things first is I fell asleep in the first half, like nothing was happening. Second half, a quick goal from Spain. We're 1-0 down. But that's okay because who's there to save the day? Cold Palmer. The man who carried Chelsea, carries England to an equaliser. But then, all hope is lost because Spain score in the last 10 minutes. Sad, I lost 100 quid, but here's my thing, right? Sorry, betting, back to betting. Even if I lost money, I would have still made a profit, right? But everyone else, if they had picked Spain and actually got it right, which they did, they would have still lost money overall in this tournament. I was the only person who made money, right? Everyone else, from the moment that the guy dropped out from before, that's right, it was the correct decision to just cut your losses. Because since then, everyone has just gone on a downward spiral. Don't gamble, people. It's dumb. And also, Euro 2024 was a shit tournament. Fuck football.